Right, welcome back to News Sources. Thank you for staying with us. Before the break, we asked you, should MCAs be wasting time and resources impeaching governors? Should MCAs be wasting time and resources impeaching governors? You can reach me on @JulieMasiga, @KTN News, #News Sources. Now, Lady Justice Roselyn Nyambue on Monday withdrew from the race for the Deputy Chief Justice job. Nyambue said she would not appear for Supreme Court judge interviews either, citing her ethnic background, which is similar to that of the Chief Justice nominee, David Maraga. Must it always come down to tribe?
I have thought it prudent to withdraw my application for both positions of Deputy Chief Justice and Judge of the Supreme Court. We come from the same ethnic community with Justice Maraga. I think it is not viable given those constitutional imperatives, even though, as I said, I was ready, willing, and I believe qualified to serve as Deputy Chief Justice and Judge of the Supreme Court.
Well, let me introduce my guests. Is this my left or my right? I have that so wrong. To this lovely lady in a black sweater is Wangari Mwikia. She's the MD Expertise Global Consulting. Right next to her is Betty Waitherero, who is a blogger and an activist. And right next to her is Faith Rono, who is a communications specialist right here at the Standard Group. Now, ladies, before we went to break, we didn't exhaust completely the whole chaos at the County Assembly and the impeachment. In 30 seconds, Wangari, what do you think about the whole situation with the impeachment motion and the chaos that followed?
I think, for one, MCAs really need to carry themselves with a lot more decorum than they carry themselves right now. I think the reasons why we stipulated that he needs some integrity, some responsibility in our MCAs. So I think to the extent that they should hold themselves accountable and hold themselves to some sort of level of decorum, then I feel like that it was really a shame what happened yesterday. But then on the point of Kidero, I was saying earlier that he does have 9 lives and he's gone through so many issues, the allegations of the 200 million bribe, the punching of Sonko and the fight with Shebesh. So that was, he's got 9 lives. That's all I have to say.
Right, Betty, 9 lives or not?
Okay, just to pick up from what she said, alleged punching of Sonko, slapping of alleged of Shebesh. It seems that the executive is passing on the culture of violence into the county assembly. I agree with Wangari that they should carry themselves with better decorum. This is not how democracy works. You have votes, you have a system of voting. That is what should come foremost. I don't see where your fists come into the conversation.
One would say that's part of democracy, but I don't know. Freedom to do whatever you feel in the moment. But moving on to the DCJ interviews, and Justice Nyambue kind of recusing herself or withdrawing from the interviewing process on grounds that she's a Kisii and the nominee for Chief Justice is also a Kisii, and citing the Constitution. Is this what the Constitution envisaged, that you could be qualified for a position but then locked out because of ethnicity? Let's imagine she became DCJ.
I think so. I tend to even agree with her because I think what we put in our constitution what we wanted was that we wanted representation. And that if we have in our top office that the CJ and the deputy CJ are both from the same tribe, then you start to question if some of the rulings may have some sort of leaning or that, and are you truly represented within the Supreme Court? So I think it was a good move on her part. I think she was also wise because she knows that when if it comes down to the wire and there are only a few people, 1 or 2 people being considered, then she probably wouldn't get it because she shares the same ethnic affiliation.
But surely, if she gets there on merit, her tribe ought not to matter, I would think.
The situation is that in Kenya we have decided that the amount of qualifications and the experience that a justice has doesn't matter anymore, or even not just the justice, even the central bank governor had the same issue being raised about his ethnicity. all these things don't seem to matter. What matters is your ethnicity. But I think that if you really want to talk about representation, then you need to find the best qualified person and the best candidate, and put aside the ethnic considerations as we build capacity in the other ethnic communities, so that it eventually you have that broad spectrum ethnically, but then you also have the best candidates running the judiciary and cleaning up the mess that is in the judiciary.
Yes.
For her to just back out like that, citing ethnicity, I found that completely. I was really offended, because I thought, you give us the chance to pick the best amongst you.
And Ms. Surinda Kapila also withdrew, citing personal reasons, but she's of Asian descent. Do you think that might have been because the immediate former DCJ was of Asian descent as well, or not? I'm beginning to wonder now.
That is actually difficult to tell, but I want to talk about Justice Nyambue. I think she just backed out so quickly, because as it is right now, we have a nominated CJ. Maraga is not the CJ yet, because he still has to go through parliament vetting. So, and the fact that the constitution provides for regional balance, that is really important. But it doesn't mean that you're qualified, so you back out because somebody from your area...
Maybe somebody whispered in her ear, Faith.
That could be true. But I just feel that it was a very wrong move for her. As much as we support regional balance, gender balance, and all as provision in the constitution, it is also very important to she should have just appeared, for that interview and prove that she's actually qualified. Because the provisions for the appointment of a DCJ is not necessarily based on regional balance alone. There are so many
other factors.
Yeah, there are other factors.
But I think also, if you look at her history, from what I know about Justice Nyambue, she's a very by-the-book person. If it says so in the law, she'll probably follow it to the letter. So even in her ruling, she ruled against ICC when they tried to take down the LED advertising on top of their building, because it was a contract. And also when the people occupied the land in Mombasa, on Mombasa Road, and she said, no, you're not the rightful owners. She told the religious organization, and she had to take them out. So she read the law and said, look, this is my stance. I happen to think it's a very good stance, and it's very, not wise, but she knew she read the cards.
Okay, hold that thought, because we're still discussing the DCJ issue. Because now the minimum sentences for sexual offenses continue to draw criticism from judges who want the law changed to allow them to make independent decisions. The judges argue that the Sexual Offences Act has tied their hands and interfered with their discretion when determining how to sentence convicts, even in cases where underage victims are the ones to blame. Meanwhile, Attorney General Githu Muigai is seeking the opinion of candidates being interviewed for the position of Deputy Chief Justice. Yeah, so the DCJ is, the Attorney General has had this question come before him before about the Sexual Offences Act, because it prescribes minimum sentences. So for example, if you defile a child who's less than 11 years old, the minimum sentence is 20 years, regardless of who you are. So they're kind of saying, what if you're a child? What if a 16-year-old is intimate with another 16-year-old? How should they sentence, and who is to blame? Is the defiler always male? Or can the defiler be female if they're both underage? So this is the kind of discussion that we're having. What do you think about this?
Well, first of all, let's remember that we're talking about rape. We want to give it defilement for minors, and actually, I think that's part of the law that should be changed. It's rape, whether it's a child of 11 or 4 or a woman over 20. So we're talking about rape. So it's not about being intimate. It's not about boyfriends and girlfriend and enjoying a relationship like one judge tried to imply. This is about a situation where sexual consent was not given, or even taken from somebody had sex with someone who cannot give consent.
Doesn't have the legal capacity
Exactly.
to consent. Yes.
So looking at it that way, you cannot then come and say, you know what, I want to apply my own rules to this. We saw in the case of in the U.S. where judges have the leeway to apply minimum sentences. In the case of what's his name? Brock Turner.
The Stanford swimmer?
The Stanford swimmer.
Yeah.
He gets only 3 months after brutally raping a girl. and there was no consideration for justice for the victim in that situation. Yeah.
But I think what they want is just a bit of wiggle room, because when they're dealing with children, they don't feel that they should be given such long sentences, because if a minor is defiling another minor, do they have the capacity to form the intent to defile is the thing. It's a bit tricky.
I think what the judges are arguing is that section, I think,
Section
8 of the Sexual Offences Act is very much fixed. So much so that if you're looking at a case as a judge, like you say, Julie, if you defile a child who is 11 years and below, for instance, you get, I think it's life.
Actually, it was life. It wasn't 20 years. It was life imprisonment.
Yeah, between 12 and 15, you get about 20 years in prison and so forth. So they're looking at making it a bit flexible so that they can be able to make independent decisions. Remember that the nominated CJ, Maraga, actually talked about this when he appeared before the Judicial Service Commission. And his argument was actually the similar argument that has been presented to Mugai before. And he was saying that if he's picked as a CJ, he will ensure that we have an institution where it actually specifically looks at issues of sexual offences.
Actually, Faith, if I can just read what he said.
Yes.
He said, we must understand that the young boys who are punished as a result of the Sexual Offences Act are our children who are trying to discover themselves. And if we continue to punish them that way, then we're doing an injustice, which rubbed me a bit of the wrong way. Because
It's rubbed me totally the wrong way. But Wangari, let's hear from you.
I think it's if the whole act is not an issue. I mean, majority of the act is fine. I think in my books, it's Section 8 that has a problem, and I do agree with you that there are issues where if a child under 11 or the ages that are stipulated are found to be in a sexual relationship, then it's the male that actually gets in trouble.
Yes.
But what happens to the woman, the female? She sometimes is consenting, and I think we've seen some cases where the woman has actually, the female has actually gone to the guy's house.
actually, remember Chitambwe saying that the 13-year-old was actually enjoying it.
Exactly. So they were complicit in. So the law doesn't say it's the male who's culpable, but the way the judges apply the law, they only apply the punishment on the boy. So I think there's a little bit of concern around that when it comes to the application of the law. And I don't think the judges should be just making their own decisions. I think they should follow the letter of the law. I'm kind of like a Nyambue when it comes
on that one.
Yeah.
But moving on, now when Laura Wemby sent out a tweet to Orange Kenya asking them to censure one of the employees who had sent her his picture on WhatsApp after lifting her phone number from registration forms, opinion was split, with many condemning her for overreacting. But what does the law say about the privacy of our personal information? Well, a data protection bill has been approved by the cabinet and will soon be debated on the floor of the House. So a data protection bill is still a bill. It's not a law, hasn't been passed, but envisions this kind of scenario where you go to wherever, Safaricom, Airtel, and you fill out a form, maybe even put down your house number, where you work, and then somebody just takes it and uses it to contact you. Surely, even in their policies, that should not exist. I'll start with you, Faith.
I think it's very unfortunate that we don't have a law yet that actually looks into issues of confidential information and privacy and, all that. Because as it is now, you could even visit a health center or a health facility, and the probability of your private or confidential information being used is very high because we don't have the law that is in place to actually curb all these things. And I hope that this bill will actually, will be treated with the urgency and the seriousness that it deserves.
But what do you think about this thing? Because the opinion was split on Twitter, especially, about some people saying, oh, he just liked her, he was just trying to get to know her, and I failed to see how they didn't see a breach of privacy.
I'll be honest, I don't think that Laura overreacted. I think that she was freaked out, and it's scary because this guy could have asked her for her number. He could have. I mean, he could have said, you know what, I really like you, just, can I call you sometime? That's just one sentence. But instead, what he did was he actually invaded her privacy, and then he went ahead and contacted her. For those who are going after her for, raising alarm, there's a serious issue here. What if he came to her house What if
He followed her home.
He followed her home. What if he followed her child home or something like that? That is scary stuff, and it's not right. It's not just he's making a pass at you. I don't think that she overreacted. I think she's right to be quite freaked out by this. Yeah,
And I agree. I agree with both of you because, in this instance, he just texted her or sent her some pictures. But they could have used that information for much more nefarious purposes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's actually a reflection of the company because if I share my data with a company, I expect that data to be used in according to the way or to the rules that were told to me why I'm sharing that data. So I'll give you my number, I'll give you my address, I'll give you my ID, knowing that you're not going to post this or use this for any other business apart for registering me and making sure that my information is safe. But then and a staff member is a representative, an agent of a company. So for that a staff member to call me and to start soliciting whatever it is, asking me for a date, it's a representation of what the company stands for. And Orange should really take this seriously. I understand that she tried to call them and she tried to get some response from them and they haven't responded. And I think I would take it very, very seriously. I mean, this guy just sent her a picture and asked her for, I think, a date or something. But that other people could have done much worse. And I think this bill, it's high time that it was signed.
It is. I do agree. But moving on, we finish with matters health. So according to Gladys Mugambi of the Ministry of Health's Department of Nutrition and Dietetics, 1 in 3 women in Kenya is either overweight or obese, with central Kenya having the highest number of reported cases. The research shows that the most affected are women of reproductive health age. Kirinyaga, leading with half of the women being overweight or obese, surpasses the national average, which shows that 1/3 of all women suffer from weight problems. Murang'a, Nyeri, and Kiambu follow each other in that order. 30 seconds each. What do you think about that?
I'm actually trying to avoid laughing because I don't know why it's just that region. I mean, I think I have no comment.
I know why it's that region.
Yeah.
We need to admit that we have an addiction and a love relationship with warus.
Oh, with potatoes, yes.
Potatoes, and we let go of this love, and try and take care of our health.
In other words, it's a Kikuyu problem looking at the counties, right? But then, I would defend it and say, look, it's the breadbasket of the nation, so...
Right, and I thought it would go to the Luyas, honestly.
Oh,
But
yes.
It's all right, it's okay.
With all that ugali, I don't know why.
Although I don't know, but yeah, that's the research, those are the facts. And we asked you before, should MCAs be wasting time and resources impeaching governors? Should MCAs be wasting time and resources impeaching governors? The results are in, people. 35% of you say yes, and 65% of you say no. Thank you so much for joining us on this Ladies' Night on the 5th day of October, 2016. Join us next week. We look forward to seeing you.